it's just literally just a group of them running to four corners of this camp, and then when they get somewhere, they're like, "Oh, where's he? Oh, where's he gone?" And then the next thing, it just feels like Scooby Doo, where like they're all running around, and you're just like, I was watching it, just thinking, "Oh God."
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. In today's episode of Top 5 Influential Horror, we have horror author Adam Hulse.
Hey.
Adam is somebody that I actually met through Tasha, and then I started reading his books, and now we're, I guess, we'll say friends.
Yeah, we're friends.
Adam gives me a hard time, but we're friends. Okay.
Friendship, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. That's okay. I can take it. All right, so, so your first influential horror on your list was Event Horizon.
Yeah. I think with Event Horizon kind of is one of those films that I find sometimes just completely forget about, even though for a long time it was like my favorite movie. Yeah. And then I just kind of forget all about it because it was, 97? And and then it's one of those when I remember it, I think, God, that's a good film. And then I start pestering people and like, have you seen Event Horizon? And then I end up revisiting it and thinking, God, you're definitely right up there for, are the better kind of horrors, yeah. But from personal point of view of influencing me, I think it really did influence me in that it does have a kind of Britishness to a lot of the production and a lot of the writing. It does remind me of kind of Clive Barker. It's kind of like Clive Barker in space. It feels a bit like there's very much a lot going on that is quite reminiscent of the Hellraiser films.
Yeah.
With regards to the vision of hell is just, you get those almost subliminal images of kind of Sados torture stuff, and it's like, it changes the film into something else entirely, I think. But it's just a really, really good idea, a good kind of example of how science fiction and horror can really meld together and become something special if you get it right. I don't think there's enough of them, because they probably live in the shadow of kind of Alien and the Aliens franchise a little bit. But I think that's why I love Event Horizon, is because it's quite a brave, ambitious film, and I think it achieves this really unsettling story that it sets out to do, and and also you think you know what's going on with it,
right?
And then it's just it's weird, it's a freaky little film.
Yes.
So it's just if you haven't seen it, you've got to see it, because like I say, if you're a sci-fi fan, you'll like it. If you're a horror fan, you'll like it. If you like both, you'll probably love it.
You'll really love it. Yeah. I actually had to read, this was the only one on your list that I needed to revisit because I hadn't seen it in, God, I don't even know how long. And so I rewatched it, and it's crazy to think, because so it came out in 97. And it's still, like, considering the time frame, and it's like you said, it's a big, it's pretty ambitious. It still holds up pretty well as far as discomfort and the effects and the, all of the pieces in the ship, like just the science fiction elements they've really held up for it to be, 2022. Like, it's funny you said that about Clive Barker. I didn't even think about that, because it kind of makes me think now of like, Into the Mouth of Madness, but like in space. Because Sam Neill, I don't know, like it just kind of, so that's a good point too. I really liked it. I really like science fiction horror, but I agree that it's a hard line to manage. I think it ends up, most of the time it ends up falling just way over into the sci-fi side of things. Then you kind of lose, the horror and translation. But this one did do it really well. It's very well balanced between the two.
Yeah, I think it's probably its strongest point aside from the writing.
Yes.
And they do have some kind of heavy hitters on the acting side with Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne. But also, I think what really stands the test of time is the sets are absolutely fantastic.
No, they are.
The set design, I think, is what they invested heavily in on the actual ship.
Yeah.
I think that's really what's give it this timeless kind of quality.
Yeah, it shows that that's where they put the effort. But it's not the only thing that has effort either. But yeah, it's really well done. I started watching it and I was thinking, I got to some parts and I was like, maybe I really didn't see this, but I think it had just been so long. But it actually, I was going to ask you, it made me think of another movie. Have you ever seen Pandorum with Ben Foster and Dennis Quaid? It's really similar to this, like so similar, in fact, that I was like rewatching it. I was like, well, this is clearly where it got a lot of its influence. But it's a science fiction horror in space. It's got I forgot how to say his last name, the guy from Twilight. But it's basically a science fiction horror about going crazy in space. But which is what Pandorum means. But it's very similar. So I feel like it might be something maybe you'd want to see if you hadn't seen it. But,
no, I don't think I have.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a little bit older, but I actually really like Ben Foster. I think he's a really good actor, and he's not in a lot of stuff. So, well, he is, but not a lot of stuff that I'm like horror wise that I want to watch.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just curious if you'd seen it because it reminded me, like, it's very obvious from the ship and some of the scenarios that happened that like they obviously have seen Event Horizon. It's like where they got their influence. So that one was, I just was like, I need to ask about that because I thought it was similar. But yeah, Event Horizon is a good one. It's very effective even now. I mean. Yeah, it made me really uncomfortable even remembering things that were going to happen. I was kind of like, but yeah, that's a good one. Make sure my cat doesn't come around and knock my computer off. Okay. Yeah, so the second one on your list was Aliens.
It's really good being old. It's good because any sort of, feeling that you're ever cool, you just get stripped of that, so you don't even try.
You just give up.
Yeah. So, yeah, I went for Aliens, and I think there's this thing where there's kind of, people are like, you're either in the alien camp or you're in the aliens camp.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I love both of them, but the fact of the matter is, from a kind of age perspective, this was, Aliens really was in my kind of formative years. I was a young kid, and I remember, playing a game with my group of friends, and we were all like, I think one of them had seen it with his older brothers, and he was telling us all about it, and it was like, you be Hudson, you're Hicks, and we didn't have a clue what he, but we were like pretending to like hunt aliens in the woods and stuff like that, and then obviously as was the custom back then, you sneaked around to a friend's house, and the dad had a copy of the video, and you'd watch it, and you wasn't supposed to watch it. It just blew me away. I remember, back then it was quite scary. I think from a kind of fear factor now, it doesn't seem at all scary. But as a kid, I was like, oh, geez. And also, and the main reason for that, and which is probably why, when you read my stuff, you can tell that it influenced me. It doesn't hold back on who you actually think are going to be the survivors. They just get, you think all these kind of tough space marines are going to go in and kick ass, and it's, because bear in mind, I was like getting brought up on like Arnie films, and it was all like, there's the kind of macho lead, and they're going to save the day, and it's just going to be loads of cool action. And actually, it was, I think probably the first time where, I was exposed to a really strong female lead, but in a really, in a really cool way.
Yes.
Because obviously you've got Vasquez as one of the part of the macho kind of contingent.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you've got obviously you have Ripley, who's already survived and wasn't meant to survive, but she survived, and then she's going back for more, and she's crazy intelligent, yet there's a real vulnerability there, and I think that's important when writing strong female leads. It's a lot more believable that you're not going to be, a kind of ruthless Vasquez kind of figure. It's more. I only think she agrees to go back on this mission because she's having these reoccurring nightmares of the alien bursting out of her chest, and she knows this is never going to end for me unless I kind of destroy them and just kind of put it to bed. And it's just such a really interesting, journey. As someone watching a movie where it gets flipped completely on its head, and all, the team gets decimated, and actually the person who was almost ridiculed at the beginning of the film by the Space Marines, like, who's this clown? Who's she to tell us? She's actually just kicked so much ass to the point that, she comes out on that like crane thing, and you're just like, oh my god.
That's true.
It's just incredible, and obviously, it's successful in a way that you forget how, it's 1986. You look at all the films that follow, and how many of them have used parts of Aliens film, even down to just the technology, like that happens with science fiction. Someone kind of invents things and they become reality. But there's a lot of things that we're seeing for the first time in that film, and we now take it for granted because it's just like stuff's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
But it was really groundbreaking stuff, and I think that's why it's probably one of the films I've seen the most in my life, and I think that's probably why, because you go back to it, and I mean, when putting this list together, I made sure I went back and and rewatched all of them, and I was just watching it thinking, God, this is it's still so good. It's so there's a few corny bits. I mean, I think Hudson is like kind of purposely corny, because he's the journey of the kind of macho man to a kind of gibbering jellyfish, by the end. You know what I mean? Where he's just kind of spouting nonsense and slapping him across the face, and it's kind of, we're in in the 50s, and that it used to be, the slap across the female lead's face, pull yourself together. It was kind of this macho man was being slapped across the face, and it was like, pull yourself together. And it was just really groundbreaking stuff for me. And that kind of relentless behavior of the aliens, you just can't stop them, and that's the horror of it for me. It's just, there's always at the end of the film, there's that there's still one alive.
It's not it's not over.
And it just influenced me so much.
I'm a fan of the Alien franchise in general. Ripley is one of my favorite final girls. I think one thing that I appreciate, being older, and now that I'm a mother, I think one of the other themes that happens in that franchise is kind of revolves around these weird tie-ins with the concept of motherhood. And so I think I just appreciate her on a much different level now in general as a character, from start to finish, because none of these things, to your point, adding this touch of vulnerability, and her being super androgynous, which is 100% on purpose, all of these things, and these motherhood themes, all of those things together, they didn't make her weak, society pushes that it does, and that's a really long rabbit hole. I won't go down that one, but it's one of those things where it's you get treated so much differently once you become a mother than beforehand, and you get so much, like, and the women that are in horror, before certain times, and even sometimes now, like, it's just a very interesting dynamic change as far as what we're seeing as the viewer for this strong female lead.
Well, I think that what's important is she's not taken seriously.
No.
You as the viewer will have 9 times out of 10, if I watched Alien after I watched Aliens just because of my age. But if you've seen Alien, you take Ripley serious. But here's a character who is the sole survivor and is a kind of expert on these things.
Yep.
Through the nightmare situation, has been kind of on ice and gone into the future, and society still hasn't moved on, and she's still not taken seriously. And I think that's very much on purpose.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you said, it's about that. This female, what she doesn't know what she's talking about. They have that meeting around the kind of in the boardroom.
Yeah,
trying to warn them. The Wayland Enterprise or whatever, and there are all these kind of like, I think there's one kind of. There's also like, it's all like the kind of corporate old guys kind of exchanging looks and eye rolls of like, oh, this, because ultimately they're only interested in the money side of it, but also
100%. Yeah,
it's because they don't take her seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that is the message.
Yeah. So the next one on your list I'm really excited about is 28 Days Later.
Oh God, yeah.
That's a great one.
Yeah. Obviously, later than I think it's probably the newest one out of all my picks. I think
it is.
But I love zombie films anyway. And I'm a huge Alex Garland fan. I read his first novel, The Tesseract, and then he wrote The Beach, which is a great book, not so great film.
I didn't like the movie.
Because he got so much money for writing The Beach, he then just was like, right, I'm just going to write for the screen instead. And I think Danny Boyle, who is obviously the director of 20 Days Later, took him under his wing a little bit, because both British guys, and the rest is kind of history. And I think now Alex Garland is he's going kind of on his own a little bit and flourishing. But I think this was obviously a massive part of his development, and a very talented guy. But for me, the main thing as a kind of zombie movie fan was this just is one of those reinvented the genre a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
So used to shuffling zombies. You think, well, as long as I don't walk down a dead end,
fine. Yeah.
Okay. And then the first time that you actually encounter the people that have got this virus, who are very much are likened to zombies.
Sure. Yeah.
As soon as Cillian Murphy kind of sees them coming, and then there's just this mob of them sprinting down the street after him. As a viewer, it was like, oh no.
Shit.
No.
I don't like that.
It's like, why would you do it? It's like if you don't like a particular animal and then you find one of them that's got wings as well. It's like, oh God, no. It's like cockroaches are bad, and then when they fly, it's like, oh,
I was just thinking the exact same thing in my
Everyone
head.
just becomes like, even I'm like, oh, they're in my hair.
I was thinking the exact same thing as soon as you said that. Oh, yeah, that's so true. Ooh.
But yeah, it's just such, it's just such a good film. It really is. And I think, there's some key things in the, about halfway through the film, when they meet up with the military, and you think, it's one of those, they'll look after them. And then actually there's this kind of, they're the indication of how how far society has fell.
Yep.
Because, the potential rapists and, the holding them against the will and making the women, even the young girl, wear a dress, and you're just thinking, oh my God. And it's just, they're kind of there as like, what you think's going to protect you is actually now part of the problem, because society is just gone.
Yeah.
But another reason for, I think, why I really got locked in is because those motorway scenes, where they're getting towards that area, and also where the kind of father figure guy ends up getting like the blood in his eye, and it's just heartbreaking.
So heartbreaking. Yeah.
That kind of motorway section is quite near where I live. So
okay, that's cool.
When we was watching it, it was like, because it made it feel even more real. It was like, just
like I know where that is.
Checking through my curtains, like we're running zombies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it was like, I think because it was refreshing to see it, in the UK, and it was then even more because it was actual regional, location, some of it to me.
Yeah.
But mainly the concept. The concept's just a really good concept, and I think it quite quickly goes through the gears. But it's a great idea because it just kind of fast forwards to when things have gone crazy.
Yeah. So I'm a huge Cillian Murphy fan. I love him. I watch pretty much I loved him as Scarecrow. I love him in Peaky Blinders, is like one of my favorite shows. I watch anything if he's in it. He's phenomenal. Red Eye, I loved him in that. But I think this is my introduction to him, and was also like a game-changing zombie because of the pace. And I think most of the time when it comes to stuff that has to do with zombies or monsters, I generally like stuff that's about people. And I think that's a lot of what this is. This shows a lot of the trust and the distrust and the trying to disconnect yourself from being too human in a world that isn't anymore. And then you add the military component, and and it's so crazy because as awful as those things are, they're just so realistic. And it's hard to ignore the discomfort of that reality being a thing that could happen, and 28 Days Later is one of my favorites. And I liked the other one too, but this one was definitely like really good.
Yeah, I rewatched 28 Weeks Later. I watched that a few months ago, and I actually I think I liked it more this time round. I think I was a bit disappointed at the time because it wasn't quite as good.
Yeah.
But then actually watching it this time, I can actually see what the vision was for what they were trying to do. And again, it's about, they fast forwarded it a little bit more.
Yes.
But, I think how these films operate is you can watch the news and kind of in between the two news stories, you can see this narrative kind of existing in the way that the government react to things, how people react to things, the pandemic, and that certainly is what influenced my writing. That's kind of what gave me the kick in the backside to finish what was a novel at the time. Was just seeing the worst in people. But if you scratch the surface, it's a social commentary. It's not about a pandemic. It's not about a virus. But it's the trilogy is essentially about human nature, and it's about the people that you don't expect are the ones that become the heroes, and the people that you were counting on are quite often the ones that let you down, and that hurts the most. And that's what I like exploring. Just everyday people. Like during the pandemic, it was everyday people.
Yeah.
In this country, it was the NHS. It was just people who were pulling double shifts and putting their own lives on the line to help others. It was just totally heroic. While the people that were standing in front of the camera and kind of taking credit for that, they would be the villains in my work.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think 28 Days Later, that kind of, I think that really branded me with its pacing, its structure, its message.
Yeah.
And that you can have something so kind of far-fetched, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that it actually feels like it could happen tomorrow. And
Yeah.
that was further kind of blown up for me with the fact that it was filmed kind of almost locally.
Right. Yeah.
Now it feels really real.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could have only got worse if they'd have filmed it in my house. But
Yeah.
but yeah, so just great film.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of 28 Days Later. That's a good one. So your next one actually made a couple of other lists, but I don't think anyone has said the same stuff yet. So I'll be curious. That's The Thing.
Yeah, I mean,
deep breath.
Yeah, I think it's because I think it's like The Thing is almost like talking about your first love. I think that's why I take a deep breath, because it's like it's almost a religious experience for me. This feels like a group of really cool people made a film for me.
Okay.
Specifically for me and
Just
what
for
I
you,
would enjoy.
right.
It's 1982.
Yeah.
And and I've just found like I've wrote more notes, I think, about The Thing than anything else. And
Okay.
And what basically happened was I Googled the film and got overexcited about facts that I learned about the film and just started scrolling them down like a serial killer. So all of this that I've wrote is probably going to be useless. But I think The Thing is probably up there with Aliens for how many times I've actually seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it again this week.
Mm-hmm.
For the gazillionth time, and Kurt Russell is just like just the coolest looking guy.
Yeah, he's a badass. Yeah,
Near the beginning, he has the most ridiculous. They're basically telling him to go up in a helicopter in a snowstorm, and he reacts by putting on the most ridiculous hat. And just saying, "Okay, let's go." And I don't know why, but. I don't think there's anyone else. I don't think there's anyone else in the world that could have put that hat on. And they'd have said, "You know what? We'll try again tomorrow."
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's just everything that I want to pour into my work, I think.
Yeah.
I remember quite an early memory was that I remember my dad. I was like literally supposed to be going to bed, and I was a kid, and he kind of made some noise because I think it's the original. Is it The Thing from Outer Space or something along those lines? There's basically a black and white 1950s movie.
Yeah.
And I always refer to it as the original, but
oh yeah.
When I fell down the Thing rabbit hole on Google, it turns out that it's just based on the same novella from 1930 something, and so this movie came on, and this black and white kind of B movie feel came on. I just remember my dad just kind of like looking at me, and I think I was at the bottom of the stairs ready to go to bed, and I just froze because it was like this eerie music and this Arctic scene and this kind of spaceship crash with really dodgy kind of effects. And he was kind of like looking at me like, is he too young to watch this?
Yeah.
And he kept looking at the telly and looking at me, and I wasn't going anywhere. And I was thinking, if I stand still for long enough, I could probably watch half of this movie. Well, my dad was just like, I seem to remember he like let me kind of watch a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And then was just like, then it was like, no, but I just remember it just being a really cool experience of like, because it's not crazy scary, and the monster is pretty ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Right.
It's pretty ridiculous in actual fact. But John Carpenter actually said he didn't want to make The Thing because he thought that movie was absolutely spot on. He was like, he basically thought it couldn't be improved on, apart from, quite tellingly, the monster.
Yeah.
So yeah, apparently Kurt Russell was involved as an advisor in the production of it before he was even considered as the lead role. Yeah, so there's quite a lot going on. You know, I mean, the fact that it flopped and then later became a cult classic,
huge classic, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And I think quite telling for me was that they spent. I think it had a $15 million budget, and they spent 1.5 million on special effects.
Yeah.
Now, when you watch The Thing, you think that is probably the best spent 1.5 million in the history of cinema. Mm-hmm. Because if you take away the effects from that film, it is something else entirely. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
I was actually watching it this week, and you know, the bit where the guy goes out, you know, rushes out into the snow, and all his hands kind of like gone like a claw.
Yeah.
It's not him anymore. And
right.
He just kind of like looks at him and gives that horrible scream that's just so unearthly. And it was proper, like, you know, I was like, oh, that is actually really horrible. And Kurt Russell just kind of emotionally like just sets him on fire. You know, it's not like he's just straight away. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to ask if it's still you. I'm just going to set you on fire. Which I think it's perfectly reasonable. Whenever you're scared, you know,
yeah,
flying cockroaches and you've got a flamethrower, just burn the house down.
That's yeah.
You know, just go for it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think again, it's another film where it has those layers to it. And I think what it is mainly dealing with is paranoia.
Yes.
Because, you know, it's within the era of the Cold War.
Yeah.
And although that helicopter at the beginning where they're trying to shoot the dog. First you're thinking, well, these are the bad guys, but actually they've come from.
You realize
they've just gone through the same shit that's about.
Yeah.
And I think they're Norwegian, but the attitude towards him is literally that guy literally just shoots the Norwegian in the head, like through the goggles, because he's like running around trying to kill this dog. It's quite severe. So it's like it's showing you that, you know, America was really on the guard, especially in places like at the Arctic and that.
Where they
and I think probably they may have liked that other research station to be Russia, but it was probably a little bit too close to kind of the political landscape at the time. But basically, I think what they're getting at is, you know, who's the real threat here? Who can you trust? And that goes all the way through the film. You know, tying each other up, taking these blood swabs, and right up until the very end, where you've got you know, two of the characters, and it's like which one's the Thing? Are they both the Thing? Are neither of them the Thing? And they're just kind of both freezing to death. Just kind of, I guess we'll see, you know, kind of attitude. And I just love that theme runs the whole way through it, you know, and that it's just so obvious, you know, it's so basic. This is what it is, you know, for the full thing, and it's this kind of almost cautionary tale of trust and lack of, and I mean, it really is a masterpiece. I'm a big John Carpenter fan.
Yeah, me too.
You know, there's loads. I mean, God, there's just loads of interesting stuff. But it's not really why it's influenced me. It's more like facts about the thing. And I would just say, you know, it's interesting that, you know, Carpenter's approach to it was slightly different to quite a lot of his other stuff. And I think probably because he was trusted with a bit more of a budget than he usually was.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He also had doubts about it. And also, they'd had several different writers and directors before. They've been trying to make it since like the mid-70s, I think. But also, I mean, all those it's shot in part, I think, in Alaska, but obviously for the kind of outdoor stuff. But I learned that all the kind of internal kind of set stuff was actually in refrigeration units in LA, where they they were literally filming in freezers. And
I did know that. Yeah,
it's so cool. I just it's one of those. It's like it's that cool a film that even the making of it is cool. It's not just a cool film for the acting and the story and the narrative.
All the other stuff too. Yeah,
behind the scenes stuff is so cool. Even the the soundtrack. Carpenter used how many cool soundtracks has he done, and he didn't do it. He got that Ennio Morricone, whose probably name I've mispronounced. He did all the spaghetti westerns, and then and then through to blockbusters. Because he got him involved because he wanted a European theme, like this kind of European cinema vibe. It's like he wanted to be taken a bit more seriously with it.
Yeah.
So for it to kind of flop must have been really disappointing for him. But ultimately, it stood the test of time. And like I say, I watched it this week, and it's still like, wow,
it's still good. Yeah,
massively kind of bridges the gap between horror and science fiction a little bit, and also what is a massive motivation for me is a kind of social and political commentary, which will always infiltrate my work. I like to think I'm not too heavy-handed with it, and I don't think The Thing is either. It's that's the backdrop. But yeah, it's just fantastic as a structure to use that. Really.
Yeah. Is. I think I rewatched this a couple months ago when it was on somebody else's influential list, and it's like, so I'm kind of a sucker for practical effects in general. I prefer that to CGI and this overuse of all this added in stuff and edited out and all these kind of things. And I think that even with what we can do now, it doesn't make it was another one that I felt held up really well. It doesn't make it any less effective because it was practical effects in the 80s. It doesn't change any of the way that you're looking at these, from the dog, from the first time you see the dog to when you're seeing, all these things later. And it's another one too, like you said, I really like the relationship stuff. I think it was really smart to give us that taste of the relationships before things went to shit, because then you get to see this, this joking, friendly, brotherly interactions with all these people who are, out here working in this place. All they have is each other. And then just how quick it turned when things got really scary and bad and uncertain. And I think the ending is probably one of my favorite horror movie endings of all time. I love the ending.
Yeah, it's unbeatable. I like you say about the effects.
Yeah.
I think kind of younger generations probably look at those effects and probably laugh. But from my point of view, I mean, watching it again, and it's just gross. It really, so gross, it's so the skin, where the guy's head comes off, and it's stretching, and the latex is stretching, and
it's
coming out. You can't do that with CGI. You can't get that same kind of practical effects like that. I think and I think how else it helps is it lends to the kind of unearthly, what the hell is this thing? It's not trying to make it look too real. It looks unrealistic because it's not of this world.
Because
that fuels that kind of, what is this? This is this. What am I? What the hell is this? And there's that almost comical bit with the head where it grows the legs, and it tries to sneak out. It tries to sneak out the door, and they all kind of go, look at it, and then again set it on fire, because that's
go to.
Love it. And I love it. And what I forgot about the film, and I realized this time round, was I think for the last 20 minutes, you proper lose sight of who's running out of what door, and they've got the hoods up, and it's it becomes those kind of wacky mirror kind of, the front fur. And you don't know where they're going, and people looking out the window and going, "Oh, where's he going?" And then the next thing, they're going somewhere, and you're like,
Yeah.
and you become part of this kind of puzzle
Yeah.
of now I have no clue because I've not been able to. I haven't kept my eyes on any of these.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, they could have got done by this thing, and I didn't realize that. I think until rewatching it this time was how clever it is that purposely the editing just speeds up quite a lot. It's just literally just a group of them running to four corners of this camp, and then when they get somewhere, they're like, "Oh, where's he? Oh, where's he gone?" And then the next thing, it just feels like Scooby Doo, where like they're all running around, and you're just like, I was watching it, just thinking, "Oh God."
Yeah. So that takes us to your last one, which is Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah. I'll just keep doing this before. Like, I don't think I've used my notes on any of them.
Does that mean there's things you wanted to say you didn't get to?
Only all of it. I'm just, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm going to carry on with this facade that that I'm reading from my notes. When actually, from this distance, I can't actually read what's on it. So, and because I don't want to be like this. So, yeah, Dawn of the Dead, the original.
Yes.
It's like a year older than me, and that was the one where, very young Adam watching on a very small TV when he should have been asleep in his bedroom. Right. And that's when, young Adam scared himself half to death, but also fell in love with the zombie genre. This is where it all started. And, George A. Romero, he, for me, was is the godfather of the zombie genre. And to be honest, I think what I forgot, because again, I watched this more recently, because probably I've watched it so many times that I think I've took like a 15-year break from watching it. So I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
And what struck me watching it this time was, because this is literally setting the rules for zombie films, there are things that happen in the film that no zombie films do anymore, because there are things that don't work. And what I mean by that is the scenes where, for example, there's the biker gang in the mall, and there's lots of extras at this point. And what you find is, because there's a lot of different extras being used, some of them are absolutely terrible at the job. Right. So now, if I said to, you and three of your friends, I'm making a zombie film, I want it to be zombies, you would go along and you would know exactly how to act, because you know what a zombie is, because you've just been immersed in zombie culture. You know how and then when someone kills you, you know how you die and how you move. There are extras throughout this film that have no idea what a zombie is, and some of them die in quite unusual ways and move very unlike zombies move. So some of them have I think, had the pep talk from, Uncle George, and then there's some that are just like, I think they've just drafted in, and some of it doesn't. There's these laws and rules with zombie films, and 28 Days Later obviously broke some of those rules for the better. There are moments in Dawn of the Dead where, because these rules are only just being set, and this is how important a movie it is, it's literally, setting up what is going to follow for the whole genre. Some of the things that actually get left behind in that movie, which is quite interesting to watch now. There's obviously, even down to there's the guy who gets bit, and rather than keep it from him, he
Oh,
they they're literally wheelbarrowing him around while he's shooting zombies and still trying to be part of until it comes time
until it's time. Yeah.
to kind of execute him.
Yeah.
I've got my Dawn of the Dead t-shirt on today as well. This is a very
I see that.
unusual one because all it is just a symbol that's
Yeah.
for the news team on the helicopter.
That's cool.
I don't know why I'm all chuffed about that, but I'm like as if I'd made it. But yeah, yeah.
Well, I don't have a Dawn of the Dead, but I do have a Night of the Living Dead that I made.
that's pretty. I have a Night of the Living Dead t-shirt that I will be wearing when we do zombie films.
Oh, cool! I'll probably do this one again. Actually, no, I have a Voices shirt that has zombie body parts and weapons on it. I'll probably wear that one for a zombie video. But yeah,
I don't know why I'm coming across as some sort of kind of Lady Gaga figure of outfit changes and but he wasn't expecting me to be on about like what.
Look, I'm a t-shirt.
You're just like Adam. Just tell me about the film.
I'm like a t-shirt junkie. One of these days, I'm probably gonna mostly because I can make them, but also just because like I have like an obsession with horror t-shirt. It's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, I probably am gonna do a t-shirt video at some point just because I have so many. But yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah. I like your shirt.
Thank you. That's all I wanted.
We can move on now.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I agreed. And 1 hour, 1 hour 4 minutes. 1 hour 4 minutes it took. But yeah. Anyway, I'll get back to the film. Yeah. Again, this was very much it's renowned for being a social commentary, even down to the fact that his interpretation of visiting this huge shopping mall and seeing the way that human beings were behaving.
Yeah.
That this is where this idea of zombies kind of, it was what would they do if they turned into zombies? Would they just carry on and still think that they were shopping? And there's just lots of that throughout. Where because they're trapped inside this shopping mall and the ones that are trapped outside are desperately trying to get back into the mall. And it's like, it's like when the shopping centres first open and you always get those people who are just desperate to get to the sale and like Black Friday kind of. And
ready to kill somebody over a sale. Yeah.
And it's just great that not only is on one level, it's just such an important movie for the genre and what I spoke about with setting the standard and the rules and the dynamics, and it's also because it again, like I think any horror movie worth its salt, it has that kind of social commentary that is usually quite cynical towards human behavior. And I think that Dawn of the Dead very much captures that kind of greedy kind of essence. I think the biker thing is kind of probably it's not the best part. But,
sure.
I think that's in there so they could give Tom Savini, is it the makeup guy, the special effects guru?
That's the one.
Mm-hmm. He turns up as a biker, and I think it was just a case of George kind of writing him into it because obviously he does and did so much for him on a kind of special effects level.
Yes. He's a genius. Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that some of the bikers in it are just so cringy now when you watch it.
That's valid. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it was very much of its era. It was late 70s, and there was that. And also, I think it was a way of showing again the decline of society, that these people were just. I think what sickened the other main characters was that they were hunting zombies for sport and having fun, and they were kind of looking at it like they were humans once, and it's really this disgusting behavior of just this kind of just hunting them and being all boisterous and drunk and laughing and I think that's why it's in there. Some of it's not great, but I get I get why it's in there, because it's supposed to be for the other main characters to be quite disheartening, and a reason why they need to get out of the shopping mall.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think and one of the things, so did you like the remake by Yeah, no, I agree. Did you like the remake by the guy that just did Zack Snyder?
Yeah, for something that is a remake of something that I hold so dear.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm asking.
You think it would be a recipe for disaster, but actually, I think it does some stuff really well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a lot more, being Zack Snyder, it's a lot more focused on the action and the kill count. But yes, I mean, some of the scenes in it are really good, and obviously, you've got a strong female lead there.
The nurse.
Yeah, which is kind of taken from the female lead from the original. It was just still, there was elements where she was almost being, in the original, having to be kind of dragged out of herself a little bit.
Yeah.
To the point where I think by the end she could kind of make difficult decisions and hold her own. She was still a bit of a kind of scream queen kind of.
Yeah.
So I think for the original, that side of it was better. That was it the 90s? I think. Oh,
the new one or the remake? Yeah. 2004.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things for me with the two is I think the one from 2004 had to kind of spoon feed you some of the social pieces. Like it wasn't as, you weren't able to just experience it and go and pick up on it and get through it on your own. Like there were conversations about why people were coming to the malls. There's conversations about, and it's like, which is very, slasher-esque, because that's what slashers do. They take all this information and they just give it to you on this platter. But I was just curious, given that this was on your list, what you thought of the 2004 one.
Yeah, I watched that not that long ago again, actually. And I think it does a lot of things well. I think the effects are great. I think when a husband turns in the beginning and there's a little kid just kind of arrives in the doorway of the bedroom, it's and then she's trying to get out the bathroom window, and it's pretty intense, and it's it's a bit 28 Days Later, really. It does have that fast pace of what you're not used to. So I think what you gain with that is this kind of more action, fast paced, feeling. But like you said,
I agree.
Romero was very good at being subtle with the kind of social side of it and the message. He was very strong in his vision for it. Which I don't think is Snyder's kind of strong point. It's not how he's made his name. But
sure,
I see it more as a standalone movie.
I can agree with that. Yeah. I feel the same way. Yeah.
You can enjoy them both for what they are.
Sure.
I really like the kind of post credits kind of scene of Zack Snyder's one where they kind of
on the boat and
they get to an island, and then it's literally as soon as they get there, they're just getting zombies just sprinting at them, and it's clearly did they survive? Did they all get killed?
What happens?
I do feel that was kind of there as they were going to do a sequel.
I actually thought so too. Mm-hmm.
But it's a lot stronger than I remember. And I would say if you love the original and you've kind of always put off watching it, I'd give it a go. It's a lot better than quite a lot of horror.
I agree.
A lot better than a lot of zombie movies. Definitely. It's it's great when they get in the vans and they're trying to kind of drive through big crowds. And that. That's kind of where the visual kind of feast that I think Zack Snyder excels at. It's just, the scale of it is quite, wow.
Yeah.
There really is not many people left. And I think he did that by crowding the frame with zombies.
Yeah.
Whereas Romero did that sense of desolation by there being nothing. I think Romero was like, there's nothing. It's all gone. Whereas I think Zack Snyder was like, look how many zombies there are. Everyone's a zombie apart from these 6 people. I think that was kind of the way he approached it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
But that's Mr. Snyder for you.
Yeah. Completely different person. That's definitely true. Yeah. Cool. That's your list. I'm gonna talk about your books for a second, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course it is. Oh. I kept trying to. I felt like I kept trying to talk about them, and I was like, "Why am I talking about my books? Shut up."
Well, no, these are your influential, picks. Like I just assumed that would be kind of part of the conversation. I just had to keep my commentary down because I knew I was going to want to talk about them at the end too. So I was just trying to keep myself and let you explain how that connects to your writing without me being like, yeah, and when you do this and this and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my bookmark, so I don't lose it. Okay. So these are the 2 that I have, which is, the Cursed Caves, which is the first one, and then the Cursed Creatures, which is the second one.
Yeah.
And the third one is out on Kindle.
Yeah, the Cursed Clones is the final book. But what I will say is those 2 books can stand alone without the third.
Okay.
The third is, within the same universe, within the same, the context is there, and there are some reoccurring characters from those 2 books that are central characters in the Cursed Clones.
Okay.
The Cursed Clones is my aliens, basically. The Cursed Clones is these people who are involved in the Cursed Creatures, the second book, are never going to recover until all of this goes away. And it becomes a situation of more of an action-packed one side versus another side.
Okay.
There's a lot of it is about the military in regards to my commentary on that and my feelings about that. Various aspects of the military, anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, because Cursed Caves and the Cursed Creatures were a novel that I wrote. That was one novel.
Okay.
And when Raventail publishers read it, they basically asked, their kind of thing is more book series rather than releasing novels. And would I have a problem with, splitting it into 2 books, which would obviously mean just a little bit of kind of finding. It wasn't a case of finding the middle and going, there you go, ripping it in half and going, there's 2 books.
Yeah.
I felt like doing that. But
right.
Yeah.
Well, that explains why the second one literally picks up where the first one ends.
Yeah, it was even, obviously, before I did a little bit of rewriting, it was even worse. It would have just been, terrible. It would have just been the next paragraph that should have been in the first book.
Right.
Yeah. So in a sense, it was more difficult than just saying, right, I'm going to write, 30,000 words about that. Now I'm going to start again and do 30,000. I'd wrote 70,000 words as a novel, which was like, that was my kind of big achievement. That was the monkey on my back. You'll never do it. You keep starting, you never finish. And I was like, right, start, middle, and end. I'm going to do it. And I did it. I did it. And then someone was, then I've got the only kind of publisher interested in me was like cut it in half. And I was like, okay. So, you know, part of me, you know, I was so, you know, and don't get me wrong, they've been great with me, and
Yeah.
I'm so pleased, you know, to get published. You know, wasn't what I was kind of setting out to do when I wrote the thing. It was just when I finished, it was like, right, well, let's see what happens. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I was kind of writing query letters and sending a book about, you know, cursed creatures to people who want romantic novels from female authors only. and then, you know, and them trying to like reply to me in a polite way, when deep down I could tell them was like they were just basically wanting to say, don't send us this shit, you arsehole. You know, so it was a steep learning curve because I didn't even know where to send it.
I'm sure, yeah.
So yeah, but you know, all the pieces are kind of there. I think most of what we spoke about in my influential movies, there are pieces.
I would agree.
You know, there are pieces there. You know, if I could get away with just writing the thing out in a book and pretending it's my own, I'd do it. I don't care. But yeah, what I say to people is that the first two are kind of standalone, and the Cursed Clones, which is only out on Kindle at the moment, is the cherry on top.
Okay.
Because what I got when people had finished the Cursed Creatures was kind of, you know, because of the way that it ends, was like, is there going to be more? Is there going to be more? And, you know, and thankfully there was a kind of call for more. And thankfully, you know, Raventail were like, will you do more?
That's awesome.
And I did I was a bit like, I'll do one more. Only because I've got so many different ideas. And I don't want to just be stuck in this. A trilogy is enough for me. I don't want to be 12 books down the line. The same characters and the same creatures.
I hear you.
Again, it goes back to what I enjoy. And if I'm not enjoying it, I'm just not going to do it. But that has ultimately led to Raventail then asking me to write a separate creature feature for them, which is what, you know, I'm nearly at the end of writing the first of two. This time I'm only going to write two. So maybe next time I'll only write one. And then eventually I'll be like, I'm not writing anything. And then realize I'm only hurting myself.
These were, I really liked the first one. I'm really liking the second one. I am like halfway. I literally I'm such a slow reader, but like, I'm literally like, I'm at halfway for like this one.
Yeah.
For creatures. And then, Clones is going to be my book club book for May. So I'll have to, suck it up and get it digitally.
Yeah, you really do. It's, you know, it's so bad because there's such a delay from having it on Kindle to having it released, from my experience, released as a paperback. That I was so happy when, you know, I got published, and then everyone that I knew was like, oh, I'll wait for the books to come out. And I was just like, I don't even know if a book is going to come out. Maybe it'll just be on Kindle. And like people are just, I like books. I'll wait for the book. And I'm like, yeah, see you in 15 years. You know it's true. There is something to be said for both, but digital makes a lot of sense now. Like, it just does. Like, one of the reasons I was trying, I already finished my book club book, but I have one book that I'm trying really hard to finish by the 5th of April for a video I'm doing with the person who wrote it. I'm trying so hard to get through it. And it is, for somebody who's not a big reader yet, like, it's big. And so, and I'd taken it to work, because that's what I do at work. And I was like, I left it
and I couldn't do anything about the fact that I left it, and I wasn't going to go back to work to get it. And I was like, I need to start Adam's second book anyway. So then I started it thinking I would get, just like a little ways into it. And then when I was getting ready, like I was reading before I went to sleep, I was like, shit, I'm like halfway through this book already. And it's good. No, I'd love it. No, it's and I think part of it is like getting used to the ritual of reading is getting better for me too. So I'm doing it faster. But I specifically, and I know I put this in my review, so you've already, that I've said this, but I like reading Cursed Caves was what made me want to become more of a reader, because I got so into it so fast. And I was like, I was like getting excited to when my next opportunity to read was, which is something I hadn't felt since I was like a teenager. I dropped off reading for so long. And I used to be a super avid reader. But the indie horror writing community is such a big part of my community. And I'm trying, like, I want to be able to be involved in projects that you guys are doing and help promote the stuff that you're doing. And I love the stuff that you guys do. And so, but yeah, it's like, I was so crazy, like surprised at how fast I was getting through the second one. And I'm like, that makes me like really excited.
It's really, it is so cool to hear that,
Yeah.
Being a writer can be quite a lonely place sometimes. And
I'm sure
there's a lot of self-doubt, and it's great to hear, when people enjoy your work, and and I'm so flattered by some of the things that you said in regards to hey, you've got your kind of hunger for reading again. I'm glad you're enjoying the second. I think the second is probably a better book than the first, but that is, like I said, it was a novel, so literally you are in the second book, you are reading kind of the payoff of
the first part. I
mean, the Cursed Caves has, I think, plenty of action in. Probably more action than a lot of stuff has anyway. I think there's kind of a lot of questions are answered in creatures, and obviously the longer you read about a particular character, you're more invested in that character, and the more you're going to care, and the more you're going to hate various people, and the more of an idea you'll have about what the creature is.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think they're both fast paced, but I think Creatures is definitely faster. Like I thought Cursed Caves was quick, like it felt quick, and then I got to the second one and I was like, oh, this one's even faster. And I mean that's a compliment. Like it's kind of like reading a movie, because you're like getting to these bigger things and everything is picking up pace, and you're getting more of that story, and you're learning more, and like all these things are changing, and and I'm loving them there. I'm excited to finish the second one and to see to check out Clones when I get there.
Like I say, Clones is my Aliens.
That makes me excited.
Clones is like, I've been given a big budget, and I'm going to take it from Alien to just be like, here's a group of people, let's give them loads of guns, and let's go and
see what happens.
Let's go and take them to there, and these creatures have actually developed even more, and it's a do or die, but again, for me, it's very kind of motivated by human interaction. It's just I think people can be quite, like, I interact with a lot of people that I know are like, I'm not going to read his books because I think that there's an idea of what my books are before you've read anything about it, and I think sometimes when I talk about it, fast pace, action, military things like that, people think, well, that's not really my kind of thing. But from my point of view, a key character is a National Guardsman who's actually, had his whole world turned upside down in his love for the military, and it's like a relationship has ended for him, and it changes the guy and his belief system, and he's just an inherently a good guy. you know, and also, you know, in Laura Rowlands, I've got my Ripley in there. You know, she's my Ripley. She's,
I love her.
You know, goes from being, you know, kind of just super clever, but not really streetwise, to being wounded and vulnerable, but absolutely kick-ass because, you know, she is so heroic that she takes full responsibility on her shoulders for what's happened, and this is my mess and I'm going to clean it up. And that's what I got from Aliens, you know, that kind of, you know, the people that stand tall. Yeah. So, like I say, there's aspects of all those films in my work.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, The Thing was the one that I was like, yep, I definitely see that one. But yeah. Oh, well, I'm gonna I guess we'll wrap up so we can do our other one. Yeah, so I'm gonna put all of your information and where to find your books in the description for the video for people to go find and check you out on your socials. That's right, and the links to your books as well. Yeah, so thanks for doing your influential. The hearing influential horror from people who write horror is always like crazy fascinating, especially obviously because I'm in the process of reading, you know, everything that's out so far, and it's like it's just crazy to be able to see the parallels. So that was cool. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for firing questions at me.
I do okay. We made it through our glitches. At least it's probably going to happen again in the other one, but
yeah, let's add another time zone in. That'll help.
It is a different time zone, yeah. Well, it's going to be on his StreamYard. Maybe it's probably not going to make a difference, but we'll see.
But at least we can blame him.
Yeah, see, I like the way you think. That works for me. Yeah, okay. So we'll take I'm just going to take a break and get some water, and then I guess I'll see you on the other video.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
All right, cool. I'll see you in a minute then.
See you in a bit. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so that was my 5 influential horror with Adam Hulse, author of The Cursed Caves, The Cursed Creatures, and now Cursed Clones. Again, all of his information is below. Adam is a super funny guy, very down to earth, very like, you know, we like him in our circle. So definitely check him out. Follow him on Twitter. All of that stuff's going to be below. And yeah, hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.